a great Friday. Well, the weather is not so great, but it is Friday and that makes it great, right? It's good to see everyone this morning. Appreciate you spending some time with us together. This morning we are talking about food security, and not all of us deal with providing food or offering food or harvesting food, but all of us on this call understand the importance of food and deal with people in our communities who don't have that food security. And so whether we're there to provide safety, or there to provide recreation, or other services, mental health services, for the people that we're working with and working alongside, being hungry and having access to food is something that they're dealing with every day. And so it's an important topic for all of us in lots of different ways. So excited to hear from a few different experts here today, and look forward to the conversation. We have three different guests, and some are longtime participants in this call, and some are new to this call. So I'm going to turn it over to Deja to welcome and introduce our guests.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah, for the warm welcome. And thank you all for joining us early today. I won't say bright and early because, like Isaac said, it's pretty dim outside right now, but hopefully that'll change as the day progresses. For the new faces and the returning faces, I want to say good morning and welcome back. If you are not aware, my name is Deja Cyrus, and I currently serve as the manager of organizational development at United Way of Central Indiana. I'm super excited to have you all here to dive into one of, as Sarah mentioned, one of our most basic needs as humans, which is food. With 1 in 7 of our Hoosiers lacking consistent access to enough food for an active, healthy life, and food security, nutrition, all the things that come with it. It's pivotal that we continue to discuss and attack this issue that our community faces. So this morning, we are fortunate enough to be joined by Sven Schumacher of Lutheran Child and Family Services, Paula Brooks from Hoosier Environmental Council, and Mimi Zakem from Kheprw Institute to help us, kind of explore this landscape and how we can provide better food and nutrition services to our clients who face the greatest barriers. So I'm going to go ahead and dive on in, starting with our panelists. I want to just open up the call by level setting a little bit. So if you don't mind just sharing just a small piece of your personal story and how your journeys have led you to where you are today, what lessons you've learned in this work, how it contributes to your mindset, your perspective, where you're coming from as you attack this issue. Mimi, I'll start with you.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, good morning, y'all. I'll also do like a brief little check-in that we do at Kheprw when we start our meetings. I find it like helpful to even just for myself to check in with myself. So our like traditional check-in for our meetings, which it's open source, feel free to use it in any situation you like. But it's a color and a number that you're feeling today. So I'll go with a light purple. 8.5 is my feeling. And we always have a bonus creative question. So I'll just do something good. I'm reading right now is The Anxious Generation by, I think it's Jonathan Haidt, about the youth mental health crisis linked to smartphones specifically. And it is, oof, man, it's a good read. He also talks about what to do. So I appreciate that.
Share the link, Mimi. I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, we're actually running a book study on it. I think our next one is this Wednesday, and it's
Okay,
virtual and in person, so come through.
nice. Okay.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so I'm Mimi Zakem, here representing Kheprw Institute. Been a part of the Kheprw family for 9 years. I'm originally from Cincinnati. The youngest of four. Grew up with um kind of a like very intergenerational, like community minded, like community like centric way of life. So just being relational is very natural to me. I can't help it. And I'm always interested in relationships between young people and elders, which was definitely a huge part of my draw to Kheprw. I also, when I moved here in 2015, I was doing AmeriCorps, looking to support urban farmers to, you know, transform the food movement and be a part of creating solutions on the ground and community for, you know, healthy food, and which transforms like the spirit and just like what a community can do by coming together around food that creates food access, but also mental, emotional health on a whole variety of levels. Um, and it just so happened that like pretty much right when I moved here was when the double A grocery stores had shut down. And Kheprw at the time, a big part of Kheprw's recipe over the years is just hosting community forums, creating space for people in community to come together and talk about what's going on and what we want to do. And so I came over to one of those conversations around the closing of the double eights. There were some young people facilitating, there was a lot of energy in the room, and a group of us decided that we would do our best to create a solution that could allow us to have our own system for accessing fresh food straight from farmers, and use a cooperative model to pool our money together and have them bring it to us. And so yeah, that's what we launched that year. Just a group of people and the backbone support of Kheprw, and we just had folks sign up and put in their money. And once we reached, I think we launched with 36 members, $500 pulled together between all of us and a couple farmers who were willing to try something new. So that's how we started the Community Controlled Food Initiative in 2015, which we still run. And then I'm blessed to be involved in several different areas of our food program. And over the years, just my love for community work and solutions and creativity. I've gotten involved with our entrepreneur support, our education, training, and coaching programs, and a variety of things that I'm sure I'll talk about more. So I will stop rambling on. Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing, Mimi. And then Paula, we'd love to hear from you as well. Just similar question, just about your personal story, just a brief overview of it, and how the journeys you've experienced have led you to where you are in the food industry, or food security and nutrition industry.
Well, I'm a native of Indianapolis, a proud graduate of IPS. I think that for me, I'm here where I am today because of just my lived experiences. So I live in I'm a third generation resident in the Indiana Avenue corridor, and I'm old enough to have witnessed successive urban renewal schemes that basically disseminated our neighborhood. Also, I've been fortunate to have been, I lived on the East Coast for a long time, been around a lot of different people, very diverse. You name it, I've probably know a little bit about it in terms of culture and people and place. I came back home because my mom needed me, and I was just kind of appalled at what I was seeing. At that time, we had the neighborhood was still predominantly Black, but we have two senior buildings in the neighborhood, and I would sit on my porch and watch these people in wheelchairs and using canes and barely making it, trying to get across 10th Street to just basically go buy a loaf of bread. because by that time, we didn't have any grocery stores in the neighborhood as we did when I was growing up. I was just appalled. I was appalled at the fact that the neighborhood association was controlled by people who were new to the area, and their concerns were much different than maintaining community. I also was appalled at the fact that the heritage and the narratives of the Indiana Avenue corridor had been co-opted. So the story of activism and power was really had been turned into a story of victimization. And it just motivated me, and I got an opportunity to join Hoosier Environmental Council to start an environmental justice project with the goal of reducing health disparities caused by environmental injustices. And that was kind of personal to me, just the fact that in this area, even to this day, we're exposed to just egregious amounts of emissions primarily. We also in this area are dealing with lead, as well as groundwater contamination issues. So I kind of delved in. I focused on supporting what I call legacy neighborhoods, and these neighborhoods are basically neighborhoods to this day are undergoing demographic and generational change. With Hogshead's administration, I do credit him and his staff for turning an eye to neighborhoods and actually investing money into neighborhoods versus just downtown. So I realized that land use and zoning is really the fundamental framework or root framework of environmental justice. A lot of times when people talk about environmental justice, they just basically focus on the disproportionate burden that primarily neighborhoods of color and low-income neighborhoods bear. But environmental justice as a framework, it actually covers every aspect of life, from transportation to housing to education to exposures to contaminants to your health in terms of the health of the planet, the health of your body, equal access to resources. So we decided that we would focus on providing training and coaching and mentoring and support to residents to be able to deal with this new development was coming into their neighborhoods, to be able to understand a rezoning petition, to be able to negotiate with the developers as well as the city staff as equal stakeholders, to be able to remonstrate, and also to look at the big picture. And I can say that I've been really proud of the people that I've worked with. For the most part, they're older people who have just suffered in their neighborhoods for decades. And to see that they're interested in the future of their neighborhood, and for the new people who are coming in, that welcoming that is given to the new people that are coming in. I've been a part of that, and I really appreciate that. But again, my focus is really on making sure that resources are adequately and equitably distributed. And that includes access to amenities, neighborhood amenities. And one of those amenities is access to food.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Ms. Paula. And I hear a lot about the history of Indianapolis coming from your perspective. So I'm sure that it just evokes a lot of passion on the subject, especially still being locally in the city and, located here and working with all of these amazing organizations and knowing the history of this issue as a topic. Sven, I want to transition to you. I want to give you some space to give your background a bit, but I also want to kind of dive a little bit further and kind of just discuss from your perspective what you view as the current state of food security in Central Indiana, and would love to just hear about how you feel it has evolved over the past few years.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Sven Schumacher, and as I remember, I have been interested in food all my life. And it's kind of an interesting way from moving from Germany, from a different culture over here. And I remember when I first came, I was immediately amazed how much food is in this country. I mean, we had supermarkets too, but there were supermarkets, real supermarkets here. And I was amazed about the variety, about the amount. And I was at this program with the Indiana University School of Social Work, and my practicum setting was the Indiana Housing Authority. And there, in those days, the programs were still called projects. And it was amazing right there how much food played a role for the residents there. Similar as Paula talked about, I've seen this too. Older people in wheelchairs trying to get a loaf of bread. And then some other folks had basically more than they could eat. And it was all in the same thing and the same setting. And so I have always been interested what food plays in the role of culture and people. And I have found out over the years that it's really a central point of all of our work, and especially a lot of the work that the United Way is concerned about. I remember days when not enough food or spoiled food in the refrigerator could potentially be a reason to remove a child from a family. And so child welfare plays a role in that. And that's what has interested us as an agency, Lutheran Child and Family Services, to participate in the fight against hunger. And we are doing this since the 1970s. And so we have a big food pantry. And we have seen quite a lot more people in the last year. There was a little dip during COVID. I think many people were afraid to go out. Some of the supply chains that we normally refer to were somewhat disrupted. And there were new ways to bring food to people, such as mobile pantries and others. But in the last year or year and a half, we have seen a tremendous increase. And I think, as Deja mentioned earlier, 1 in 7 is kind of one of the sadly magic numbers we have. And that was just reported again by Gleaners in their report here this summer. And interestingly, it is not only an issue for the central city, but it becomes more and more of an issue for the suburbs too. And so there's quite a number of work still ahead of us. At Lutherwood, we are in an interesting, or at our sharing place, we are in an interesting situation. We're in Lawrence Township. And Lawrence, in some ways, is one of the richest part of Marion County, and in some other ways, the poorest part, because it goes all the way from Geist Reservoir all the way down to the 30th Street and on Post Road and Midhofer German Church. And so we see a great variety of people that are looking for needed supplies for them. The other big new thing that we have seen probably in the next couple of years is a lot of new immigrants coming to our programs. And especially what comes to mind is Haiti, but it's Venezuela, it's El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico. And so we have done a lot of training for our staff, and the great thing, we have new foods, and maybe some of you probably go to your grocery store and see some vegetables and you wonder, what is this and what can we do with it? And sometimes those things end up at sharing place, and the families from Guatemala and El Salvador, they immediately know what to do with it. And it's so it's a cultural shift, but we still have a stubborn number of lots of people being food insecure, and we can talk more a little bit about this. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Sven. I want to continue the conversation a bit. Ms. Paula, I'm going to pivot to you here. What are some of the primary barriers that prevent Hoosiers from accessing nutritious food, and how can we address these obstacles as a community?
Availability, access, also transportation, I believe, is another huge barrier. As well as just the economics, finance, the cost of food has increased, I would say about 30% across the board since COVID. And I always kind of wrestle with this because, you know, we kind of got spoiled in terms of food production, and we've been separated from that. And what the result of that is that as Americans, for the most part, we don't understand true costs of producing food. It's just not growing food. It's also the transportation, the distribution networks play a large part in that. And you know, we're in this capitalist system where if a retail operation cannot make a profit, they're going to close. That's just what's going to happen. And I think that in this discussion that we have about access to food and barriers, that we need to broaden the conversation a bit as well. You know, my friends used to tease me because I had gotten to the point years ago in my life that I didn't eat anything that came in plastic or aluminum. So that took out a wide variety of food for me, you know, nothing processed at all. I find that what happens, especially for people who do not have the financial means to actually buy nutritious food, they're given food that actually is harmful to them in terms of the being processed, and that leads later to health problems. A lot of sugar in the food, so children have issues with attention. You know, in a lot of places, and especially these, when Sven talked about the immigrants that are coming to Indianapolis, this is new. This is new for our city. But most people, even in Europe, they buy food every day. You know,
Right.
it's not like for us, our mentality is that we have to open up our refrigerator and it has to be packed, and our cabinets have to be packed. Otherwise, we're not secure. And so that goes back to what I'm saying about just expanding that conversation. What does it mean to be food secure? In a lot of neighborhoods, and I can use Martindale Brightwood as a good example. There's several community farms that are available. There's food distribution places that are available that people could go to on a daily basis to get food, if that was the mindset. So I just think that the conversation just needs to be broadened.
Mhm.
I completely agree. Availability, access, transportation, and the financial barriers. One of those issues will do it, let alone all of them combined. So thank you for sharing. Mimi, I want to pivot to you next. If you could give us some perspective and insight, what do you believe are the consequences of a lack of equitable access to nutritional food for our clients, our communities, and those that we serve?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we put in our bodies affects us in so many ways, what we do or don't put in our bodies. So I mean, Miss Paula was speaking to it well, from the line to, high sugar and how that affects attention, um, to all kinds of health problems that come from just processed foods with, a lot of toxic stuff in it, high salt. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways, but I was also talking last night with Carol and Nellie, who are a couple friends and community leaders in community. They've been part of the Growing Good in the Hood garden, that's right outside the window over here. And they're just talking about how much they have seen and experienced, how what you eat impacts your ability to like think clearly, like the difference you feel when you have healthy food in you, um, versus, crap, which is what is most widely available and affordable.
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I mean, everything that's been said about the physical, mental, emotional health aspects and how that affects your ability to carry out, pretty much anything. Because
mhm,
if your thinking is impacted, then everything you do is impacted.
absolutely. And sometimes it may not show itself immediately, but over time, these issues can definitely prevail and cause some larger ones down the line. Sven, I would love to have you kick us off. We have time for about a couple more questions from our panelists before we open it up to Q&A. So if you're thinking of any questions, we'll have time here in a few minutes, or just feel free to drop them in the chat box at any time. Sven, but would just love to hear from you. Can you share any successful initiatives or programs in Central Indiana that have significantly improved food security and nutrition? If you could just point us in the direction or share any
Yeah,
that you're aware
yeah.
of.
I mean, the most wonderful story is, of course, Gleaners, who really, that's kind of like the wholesaler. They are the food bank, and we, of course, work very closely with them. And they have pushed all of us that are in that space to really step up our game. And we did this at Sharing Place, and so we now serve more than 20,000 people. There's an interesting little side story on this. It is amazing how many people are reading the labels of these cans. And Paula, that's good news. I mean, people are not just grabbing the easiest food to make, even though we have to understand a lot of families are under a lot of challenges, and providing food and something that can be cooked and prepared easy for the children plays a big role. Not everybody can sit down and do this 5-course French meal here every day. It's impossible. But it's amazing how many people are staying away from the high sugar and the high salt contents. And food pantries, and that's another success story, have so much more fresh food. I mean, we are just an amazing place of fresh food. And so it's not just like 30 years ago or sometime where the most dangerous and the most unhealthy food you would find in pantries. Now we have a tremendous array of fresh foods. That's good news. Mobile pantries, I think, is another success story in our community. We have a program too called Silverbox, where we deliver food because there are people out there, and we have talked about it, that are isolated. They're not able to come to a food pantry. They're not able to because of health and other reasons. And so we have 65 clients there that folks They can call it, we call them what kind of foods they want to have, and we deliver once a month for 2 weeks of food. And so that's good news. And yesterday, in preparation of our meeting here today, I went to Indie Fresh Market. I think some of you might have heard about this phenomenal program over on 38th in Arlington. There's a new Ashkenazi health center. There is a Goodwill Cook Medical manufacturing place, and there is this phenomenal 14,000 square foot brand new food market with lots of fresh food in what we call food desert. And so these are a couple examples to show you. I think we're moving in the right direction. We just lose so much food, and so anything we can do to kind of turn that around. And there are many different reasons for this, but there's a lot of food left and lost in the last mile, somewhere between the grocery stores and the consumers, the end consumers. And then I'm sometimes guilty of it, that I, buy stuff and then I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do with it? And 5 days later, I'm not doing anything with it. And so to concentrate more on that. And so lots of success stories.
Absolutely. And I can say I fall victim to that as well. I'll load up on a bunch of vegetables, and by the time I get to them, they're already gone bad. So really great perspectives and some really great resources that you've shared. I want to pivot to connect the dots on all
Asia,
of this a bit now.
Asia, before you move, I just want to mention the Department of Public Health and Safety's partnership with Lyft. I think that that's amazing. You can get dollar rides to the grocery store, and it's available citywide. I think that that is a great example of a success story. So I just wanted to mention that in case the audience wasn't aware of that program.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I definitely wasn't aware of that. Mimi, if you want to throw in any initiatives or programs that you're aware of before we transition, the more the better. I'll share these out to our audience after the call. So any resources that we can provide, we definitely want to do our best.
Cool. Yeah, I can chime in. I mean, of course, the ones that I know the best are the Kheprw programs that I'm a part of, which I can speak a little on. I mean, we have um, programs that we run kind of across the span of the food system. So we do food production through the Growing Good in the Hood community garden, which is, of course, making food, teaching people how to grow food, but also very heavy on just the community building aspect and the garden as a healing space. And it's just, if you see it come alive on Thursday nights when they do their weekly workshops, I mean, it's just like, about 50 people probably average on each Thursday. And, families, moms, sisters, kids, like it's amazing. And the energy that the growers have and build and share with each other through that has been very inspiring for the last many years we've been doing that. And then we have food distribution, the community controlled food initiative. So we purchase food from local farmers in a co-op model. So a little bit of like a mutual aid piece between the local farmers who need a market, and then the community members who want access to fresh food for affordable prices. And we also, through that program, we have members who donate food to other members. We deliver to senior apartment complexes around town. And we average about 70 orders a month when we do our community controlled food initiative. So that's, farmer support, aggregation, distribution. We have a food rescue program, which we do every week on Sundays, which is where we have a partner organization in this food chain, which is the Dove House Recovery House for Women on Meridian. They get excess food donations from Trader Joe's, and then what they can't use, we go pick up and we bring to our space, and then we sort it and organize it with a group of volunteers, and then people come through and shop And then what we can't use, we pass on to other organizations like Food Not Bombs will come and use the food and their preparations for houseless populations downtown. Um, so yeah, that's sort of the food rescue. And then we have 17 acres on the south side. Octavia's Visionary Campus is a historic farmland, and it has a greenhouse, market, houses, and it is a newer property. And so we've been, developing it and just rolling it out to the world. But definitely as a space, we've done youth programming, summer camps, food production. We've hosted a fair amount of like events and workshops that are also sort of in the educational and relationship building space around food, and like yeah, how to pull together partners that are working on different parts of the food system. We partnered with the Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District. They've been super helpful. Kevin Allison is an angel, and they can come out and really support a lot of efforts in community to produce food, amend soil, set up ways to manage water systems. They're really been helpful. Man, yeah. I'd say, to me, doing these programs, like one of the biggest things that I see is just when you create space in community and provide resources to support people to solve their own problems, they do it and they bring, a passion and an expertise and a lived experience to it that is just essential for anything to actually make sense and be able to sustain. And so like one of my favorite examples in the food share, we have Miss Joni Clark, who has an organization called Cover Me. And she's a friend and she volunteers with that program. And then we have Granny D, who comes over for the food share every Sunday. And the two of them got together, they connected through the weekly food rescue, and they started providing food to men who are on prison work release because they're both passionate about that. And they, found they'll like aggregate food from there, but they also like reached out to other places to get food donations and figure out how to put those to use in community. And they started their own thing and they've been maintaining that, on their own for a couple years. So, just seeing how, and we have a lot of partners in all this work who make it possible. So all the like collaboration and how when you just create space and provide resources to people in community, they figure stuff out and then they keep it going in a way that only like people living in the community can do.
Absolutely. Mimi, thank you for sharing. And I'm happy that you touched on that word collaboration. We have about 3 minutes left before we need to open up the call for Q&A. So if our panelists and our speakers don't mind just going through and taking maybe like a minute to discuss what you think how collaboration between the various central Indiana sectors, such as nonprofit organizations, businesses, the government, can enhance the efforts to ensure equitable access to food. So Mimi, if you want to kick us off and then we'll round it out to Paula and close it out with Sven and then we'll open up for Q&A.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to me, a lot of the transformation happens through relationship building. So I think that people need to actually get together and get to know each other on a personal level across all of those areas, but just as people and relate on a certain level that allows them to build some trust and relationship, which changes how you can actually work together and be in relationship and have a collaborative, cooperative spirit. Yeah, since we're short, I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Right. Ms. Paula, if you don't mind sharing as well, just about how you think collaboration between these sectors can enhance the efforts.
I can just give a great example with Indy Parks and how they distribute food at the family centers. And I know Urban Acres, I believe, provides the fresh vegetables. So I'm can just second what Mimi mentioned about relationships. That's really important, because when you have a relationship, right? And I'm somebody that is not that hates emails because things get lost, but that personal interaction, you have a conversation and you find out exactly what the problem is or what the need is, and then you can deal with it right there instead of going back and forth. And I believe that that's how the program with Indy Park started. It was just during COVID, and
Mm.
the parks were a good place for food distribution. But it's been a good program. I know people that look forward to it every week.
Yes, it's a really good resources. Thank you for sharing. And then Sven, if you don't mind rounding us
Yeah,
out.
quick. It takes personal relationships, as we already talked about it, but it takes organizational relationships. And so our sharing place is an example for that. The MSD of Lawrence Township is deeply involved. Serve thousands of students and families, and many of them come to us. And then Gleaners, who made some changes how they do things. So, for example, instead of them picking up food from some stores on the far east side and bringing them all the way to the west side, and then we drive over, we are picking this food up from their stores. And so it's really that we are serving and more people quicker. We are rescuing more food, and that's how it works, through these organizational relationships where people are not having just each other's phone numbers, but they are really putting some skin in the game and really providing some help. And the United Way plays a big role in that. One example is that the volunteers groups that are brought over to Sharing Place, because we still have to do a lot of education on the issue of food insecurity. Lots of people's minds are opened when they are at a place like the Sharing Place, and see what's really going on. And we have some fabulous discussion there. So the United Way plays a big role in bringing folks together as usual. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And now with the last 15 or so minutes, I want to open the call up for some Q&A. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask or get clarity on, any resources you're interested in, or any services from any of the organizations that these wonderful professionals are a part of, please feel free to come off mute. We have a Q&A function in Zoom, and then we also have the chat box. But I see a question that just came through from Crystal. So she said, are there any organizations that after school programs could partner with to distribute food or distribute healthy foods to our youth and families in food insecure districts? And then she went on to talk about healthy snacks and so on and so forth. But I'll pause there to answer that first part of the question. Sven, it looks like you're off mute. Feel free to chime in. And then Miss Paula, Mimi, if you guys want to follow up, you're more than welcome as well.
I would think that our Silverbox project could be one of those potential partners to provide foods, because we have all kinds of clients there, a very diverse population of younger and older people, and so interested to talk further about that opportunity with after school programs. I think it's such an important thing.
Thank you for sharing.
I recently learned about an initiative by the Patachou Foundation, and they've partnered with, and I can't remember the school, with the school to provide healthy lunches for the kids. I think a program like that, I think that this is the first year, but that could be expanded to after school programs, like basically like a snack, right? But the food is healthy. There's the partnership with business and nonprofits and families. So those types of programs, I I have a lot of hope for.
Oh, it looks like Christy said it's Purdue
for
Poly. Yeah.
Thank you, Christy.
I would just throw into on the question, like if you're thinking about transportation, I would just also think about what organizations in Indianapolis might have access to, the means for transportation, that you could maybe reach out to, like a trucking company or even to schools to, talk about the buses. Because sometimes like these innovations just come from looking at those type of leverage points that just maybe haven't been connected yet. It makes me think of like how Sharana started the Lawrence Community Gardens, which was, the Monarch Beverage Company owned this land in the neighborhood, and she was driving by it all the time, like, well, we need healthy food. And she wrote them a letter and was like, hey, I think y'all should, support this community that you're in by, allowing me to farm on the land. And they were like, okay, like come through. And she told them her whole plan, like everything. They got to know each other, and boom, that's how Lawrence Community Garden was made, which has been an amazing resource in community. So sometimes it's that creative thinking element, and with that one, you might just start at, okay, what organizations and institutions have access to means for transportation that maybe we could reach out and explore new partnerships.
Awesome. Great insights. And Crystal, it looks like there's some additional resources in the chat as well. I'll be sure to share these out, but really great resources that were shared there. Linda, I see that you have your hand raised, so feel free to come off mute and ask any question that you have.
Morning. Good morning, y'all. I am in the car, so I have no idea what I look like. I did turn my camera on, so just listening in as I'm driving from meeting to meeting. I would be remiss if I didn't do A, some shameless self-promotion, and B, just interject a few other thoughts. Super great conversation this morning. Thank you all for sharing. And to Crystal's question and to others, I'll be sure to say, certainly Second Helpings, we are in the business of fighting hunger from all angles and providing meals and pantry goods and whatnot. So if there's anyone on this call that we're not working with that is in need of food resources, please don't hesitate to reach out anytime. The other thing I'll say is, we are only good as the feedback we get and the partners we have. So we do everything based on partnership with the community. And if you have any feedback about what we're offering, how we're offering it, how we can do it better, please call me, email me anytime, or reach out to our team. The other thing I'll say, at the risk of stating the obvious, while we're talking about hunger, right, we have to couch it in terms of sort of the overall kind of poverty, the living wage initiative in town, et cetera. So the Good Wages Initiative, I hope, is something folks are paying attention to. I know they got it up to $18 an hour a couple of years ago. There's a lot of question already, of course, that's probably not even close to where we all need to be. And I know, United Way is, an advocate in that space as well, making sure that folks in our community make enough money to buy food in the first place. The other thing I would ask folks to pay attention to is SNAP and WIC, organizations like Second Helpings, like Gleaners, like anybody else on this call. We are serving such a small, very, very important gap filling, but a small slice of the food need for folks who are food insecure. And so making sure that our legislators are funding SNAP and WIC to the fullest extent is crucial to ensure that folks don't go hungry in our community. That's it.
Thank you for sharing, Linda. And if you would like to drop your email in the chat for anyone that does want to reach out and extend to collaborate, please feel free to do so. And then Julie, I want to allow some space as well. I see that your hand is up. There we go.
Thank you. I had a question for Mimi and Paula related to urban farming and gardening and the environment and the quality of the soil. What is basically what's happening there, and who's helping sort of make sure that the ground is actually safe for gardening and farming, given what's in the soil in a lot of places.
That's key. And especially in Center Township, it's an issue. And it's very expensive to totally remediate contaminated soil. I don't know what the answer is. Fortunately, the past 3 years with this Biden administration, there's been funding, basically hundreds of millions of dollars in funding to help with that. But if we continue to contaminate our soil, we're just really on a hamster wheel, and we're not making any progress. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I'll add, I mean, there's a lot of lead contamination and other issues in the soil. How we have managed it is there's a great resource called Chip Drop where you can sign up for free um chip drops of like mulch from tree companies. And they'll come do it for free because they need to get rid of it. And so you can use that as like a barrier, and then we do raised beds. And so, you know, we'll buy some soil and compost, but also make our own soil through composting. Um, and we've also worked with the IUI Earth Sciences Department to do some lead testing and recommendations for remediation. And gosh, I'm trying to remember who else we worked. So I'm thinking of a couple professors over there that have different programs for lead testing, and then also can help advise about how to manage that if you live there or you want to grow food there.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And that's a great question, Julie. I remember us discussing lead testing a while ago when I first started at United Way on one of these calls, and that just brought it back to the top of my mind. So thank you for asking and thank you for sharing. I want to allow some additional space. We have about 3 or so more minutes for another question or anything that anyone wants to share about their organization or collaboration. Feel free to come off mute, type it in the chat box, use the Q&A function, however you feel most comfortable, but want to allow that space for you all. And while we wait for anything to come through, I want to take some time to thank our panelists today. Very well-rounded experience, a lot of great insights. I have literally a list of resources I'm going to have to share in a follow-up email just because of the framing of the conversation that you guys have provided and the perspectives you've given. So want to take some time to thank you all before we close out, but definitely want to allow some additional space for other questions and stuff to come through.
Deja, you reminded me of something. If you like collard greens, anybody on this call that likes collard greens, Mrs. Stair at the Village Highwatch Center, she has the best collard greens in town. They're tender. I don't know what variety they are. They're inexpensive. You can get a big bunch for like $1. You just need to reach out to them, and the kids, she has this wonderful program where she works with kids and try to connect them with nature and environment and community. So you just contact them and put in your order, and the kids go out and pick it, and it's ready for you. But her collard greens, I have not found any better collard greens in town.
I do love a good plate of grains. So
And
thank you for
especially when you
sharing.
don't have to, hers are tender, so you don't have to cook them for a long time, right? So you're not cooking out all the nutrients.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
That is true.
Linda mentioned Astor for president in the chat box.
I know Linda did. No, she's awesome. And once you get to know her and you start talking to her, you you get a deeper understanding of her connection to our world, right? It's bigger than just her program. She's really someone that reveres our environment and not only our physical environment, but also the spiritual environment. And she's just a wonderful person, huge asset to Martindale Brightwood, but also the entire city.
Amen. She's been doing great work with young people for a long time. Yeah.
You know, solving the food crisis, of course, provides training opportunities, and of course, Second Helping has done this for the longest time. But there's lots of opportunities. I mentioned the grocery store earlier. I think they have more than 40 employees that find work there at the site. And we are working with the MSD of Lawrence Township to maybe see that high schoolers could actually, in a way, run Sharing Place, or a good part of it, because they are logistics experience, customer service, ordering, all of these kind of things one can learn, and with the expanded opportunities for young people, especially young people at risk, earning credits, there's maybe some other opportunities. So the fight against hunger reaches in all kinds of other areas, it's not just about food, it's about a lot of other things.
Absolutely. That's a perfect way to close us out. It reaches in so many other areas. So again, want to thank you all for coming today. Want to take some time to broadcast our next sector call, which will be over building scholastic bridges and fostering education equity, which will be on Friday, September 27th. So I welcome you all to come back and join another meaningful discussion. And I want to thank the panelists for their meaningful discussion today. Thank you all for logging on, and I hope to see you on the next call.